local traditional Yugomet language, I just said for you all, welcome, how are you all? My name is Cameron. Before we start, I'd like to pay my respect to the elders, past, present and future. I'd like to have a moment of silence, and during that moment of silence, I'd be playing the didgeridoo, but in this local area, in the Yugomet language, we call this Bire El Mandu. Thank you. And now I'd like to welcome Auntie Del Paulson to the welcome to country.
Hello, I'm Auntie Del Paulson. Thank you for welcome. Good day, Gingery, hello. As we gathered here, welcome to Mullinjali country. As we gathered here today in this beautiful land, we respectfully acknowledge elders that have gone before us for passing on the dreaming of spiritual connection to country, values, beliefs, and the knowledge of sharing love and care for each other, to be generous in giving food, tools, skills, songs, dance and stories. Also acknowledging the elders present for continue the dreaming, making tracks and connecting, sharing the history of stories, knowledge and keeping the dream alive on hand, and emerging elders. Thank you for your kind invitation to the traditional Mullinjali elders to do the welcome. It's always proud custom to share spiritually, uplifting, and to have our Mullinjali people acknowledged. Thank you.
Minyagu, Bujarabagu, Nanyanari, Brendan. Today we would like to perform for you a traditional Mullinjali welcome dance, which was given to us by Uncle Magpie Curry. This dance is called Walu. But before I start, I would like to introduce you to my Junabay Nabani, my family. From left to right, we have Mitchell Curry, Alice Curry, Mariah Curry, Zach Fogarty, Cameron Fogarty, Derek Fogarty, and my lovely aunties here. Auntie Janice, Auntie Jerry, and Auntie Sue. Alright, now we would like to perform Walu. I'd just like to bring my bum to the stage, Jared Fogarty, to help us with our next dance, which is a play dance we call Nani Nari Wumba.
Whatever said is good morning, my friends and family. Welcome, hello, how are you? And my name is Jared. This dance is called Ngalangi Ngari Womo, which means we all play dance together. Ngalangi Ngari Womo, 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 Ngalangi Ngari Womo. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Once again, thank you ladies and gentlemen. We are Manajali Nari.
Hello, I didn't expect to do this. Hello, my name is Alicia Melanie Jones. I'm super honoured to be here on Mananjali country. My traditional country lines are to the Ben Lomond and Swamport peoples of Tasmania. I've been working with the community here for the past 4 months. And we've done a huge amount of work, and I'm just really honoured to be up here. Thank you for coming to all our visiting peoples, especially all the mob who've made a huge journey. We're really honoured to have you. So I'd like to invite Nadine MacDonald-Dowd and our first group of speakers, Amanda Heyman, Troy Casey of Blacklash, Ian, where are you? Ian Auntie Collars, here he comes. And I'll call Mitchell Curry back on the stage. So bear with us for a moment as we set up for our first conversation. Thank you.
Just before we start that, we have an official welcome from Councillor Enright and Colts.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and how wonderful for you to all be here with us today. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we are gathered, and to thank the elders past, present and emerging for their continued contribution in preserving the stories of this place and the Mananjali people's custodianship of this land. My thanks to Uncle Bevan Page, to Auntie Dell, and to all of our Mananjali elders for this very moving ceremony and welcome to country. The scenic rim has a rich Indigenous heritage through the Mananjali community here, the Yugarapal people to the west, the Wadjarabara people to the east, and to all those of the Yugambeh and Jagera language groups that cover these lands. It is my honour to join you in officially opening Arts Ablaze, the largest regional arts conference and celebration ever staged in Queensland. Arts Ablaze has brought elders and community members from all over Queensland who are here with us today. From Yarrabah, from Townsville, from Blackall, from Woorabinda, from Torres Strait. We welcome you and thank you for joining us in this landmark event in the life of our region. To the arts practitioners and conference delegates who also have travelled many days and hundreds of kilometres to be here with us, we welcome you to the Scenic Rim and hope that you will find inspiration in our spectacular scenery and natural environment. Facilitated by the Scenic Rim Regional Council, Arts Ablaze has received widespread financial assistance through the Australian Government, the Queensland Government and arts organisations. This event is a collaboration made possible by people who are concerned for the sustainability of our regional communities and understand that the arts play a vital role in that sustainability and in our capacity to live well in our regions. We are particularly grateful to the Australian Government through the Building Better Regions Fund, the Queensland Government through Regional Arts Service Network, the Australian Government through Festivals Australia funding, Regional Art Fund, together with Flying Arts, the Queensland Government through Queensland Arts Showcase Program, RADF, the South West Queensland Regional Arts Service Network, the Ramada Resort Carrabin Valley, Flying Arts Alliance, Arts Front, Central Queensland University and Art Tour Queensland. To all the delegates from other councils, Regional Arts Development Fund committees, arts organisations, performers, presenters, facilitators and artists, welcome to Carrabin for this gathering that I know will fire your creativity and reignite your passion for the arts and culture. After the conference, please join our Scenic Rim community in the spectacular celebrations that I am sure will be remembered for many years to come. We hope that you will take away many warm memories from Arts Ablaze and that it will not be too long before you return to explore further areas within the Scenic Rim. It is now my pleasure to introduce our Federal Member for Wright, Scott Buckholz, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And for those of you that don't know Michael, he's our local councillor. He's an absolute trooper. He's on about his third round of antibiotics, but he still dragged himself out of the sick bed to come and be here with us today. Can I formally welcome each and every... Absolutely, round of applause. A little Mighty Mouse in the chair. Quick show of hands. Who's not from Scenic Rim? Hands. Oh my God, what a wonderful rollout. Can I acknowledge my gorgeous wife down here, Christine, my other half, and Elizabeth. Thank you very much. I've just embarrassed them, absolutely. I'll get flogged when they get home this afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, you've seen firsthand. I want to associate myself with the welcoming comments of Michael for the Malanjali people and the beautiful dancers, elders past and present, for the work they do in our community. They're very active. It only seems like it was 12 months ago when we stood here locally with some federal grant and said, with a bucket of money, and said, let's pull this together. If some of you from know how projects like this organically, and it normally comes from can I acknowledge Christian data with Bush. We've had a little bit of the days. Behind the enthusiasm from Council for this event, there's been a lady who I want to acknowledge, and she was with me when we first made the announcement for the first capital seed funding, and then there was other blocks of money that come that Michael alluded to. But I want to bring out on stage, please, Bronwyn Davies, who's actually the heart and the soul of this organisation. You know, when you go back home and you think, who are the doers in our community? Who are the people that make it happen? In our community, it's this lady here. So when you walk past her, pick her brains on how she did it, so you can take it back to your parts of the community. Michael, you said that this was the largest regional conference, arts conference, and how proud are we as a Scenic Rim to be hosting that here in Coralbin at the Ramada Resort. What an amazing property to host it. My electorate of right is diverse in its own nature. Who knows where Robina over on the Gold Coast is? That's my eastern border, and I go through to Toowoomba on my western border and down to the New South Wales. So even just the collections of art within that demographic is diverse in its, from the seascapes from Mudgeeraba to, as you can imagine, the eclectic range of art that we have at Tamborine Mountain, through to the Lockyer Valley, in particular through here with our Mullinjali people. So, to have on display, art that's come from all around Australia, predominantly regional Queensland. I want to share with you, without taking too much time, how this funding come about. And I don't want to talk about the funding for this project, but in Queensland, a couple of years back, we had in the federal parliament, we have senators and members and ministers. So anyone that comes from Queensland, it doesn't matter what your title is, we all get together once a month and we meet in Canberra. And the then Arts Minister, Senator George Brandis, who's moved on to London as an ambassador, or our High Commissioner over there, he was our archer, and he was such a passionate advocate for the arts. And he made the point in our Queensland party room that he felt that there was too much money going to the capital cities, in particular Sydney and Melbourne, and that Queensland, being the most diverse population of all the states, was potentially missing out the most. So as a result, he put into place some quarantines that made sure that regional parts of Australia got their fair share. So I share with that story for you, not to talk to you about or share with you about politics. I share that story with you is that there is an appetite for governments to spend more money in regional Queensland, encourage you to take advantage of those. Whilst we can have amazing operators and motivated councils, the quality of your submissions that are written by councils are paramount. If council's going to be the lead changer in those spaces. So good luck with your submission writings. The government has an appetite to invest in regional Queensland, has an appetite to invest in regional Australia. I'm not going to take up much more of your time. In fact, I'm going to close up now. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for local government, for our state government partners, for Bronwyn, enjoy, and I'll see you over the next time.
hydration station across here to come up with water bottles, that would be fantastic. Ian. All right, we might make a start. Morning, everyone. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Mulunjali people and thank you very much for that welcome this morning. It's really wonderful to be a visitor in somebody else's country and to be welcomed in such a way that reminds you that even though as a performing arts and an arts community we're less than 300 years old, our people have held story and place and song and dance and performing arts in this country over 60,000 years. So sovereignty has never been ceded on this country, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. My name is Nadine McDonald Dowd. I just said my name wrong. Dowd. I'm a Yabira woman from North Queensland, which is my mother's country. Grew up in Bakers Creek. I also would like to acknowledge my family connections back to South Sions and also my father for the red hair because he's Scottish and Irish. So I'm very much a visitor to this place, and this morning we have a great panel of people and other deadly artists who are going to talk through a couple of things. But for those who don't know what we're yarning about, I'd first like to say it's about, and this is the biggest version ever, but I'm going to say it just in case no one knows what we're talking about. Inspired by a potential myth around First Nations having different approaches than other than non-First Nations people. Do we approach the making of work differently? How important is protocol in the work that we do? Are protocols limitations? Is it always about country? Does it have to be about giving back to community? And are we always working to shift perceptions? That's a big lot of questions. And this is like a big audience. I thought it was going to be like little tiny things, so I'm going to take my glasses off so I can't see you. What I would like to do though is I'll start with Mitchell, and I'm just going to get the panel to introduce themselves very quickly under 2 minutes. Who they are, your mob background, etc.
Hi everyone, so my name is Mitchell Curry. I'm a proud Mulunjali man. I would also like to acknowledge my grandfather's side, so I'm also a Wilson. So Wilsons, we're from Gungri country, so that's Mitchell, that's why my name is Mitchell. My middle name is Nalangu, so in Gungri language it actually means me and you, or sharing. So, yeah. And also like to acknowledge, you know, my ties as well. So, my grandmother, she was a Kearns, she was taken from Durham Bandy out to Yarrabah Mission, so out that way as well. And yeah, I've also got ties out to Bunchalang country as well, so out to Tweedheads. So yeah, a little bit about me, about my people and where I'm from. I'm a choreographer, so today I'm working with Arts Ablaze as the choreographic lead for the Mulunjali hub out that way. So we're going to be doing the Aboriginal Mulunjali dance for you guys around the Gullanini dance. So yeah, a little bit about me. So yeah.
Yay. So I've just had sinuses, so you have to forgive me. And I didn't have my voice yesterday, so and aunties know that. And they said, you gotta be quiet, only whisper, have kappa. That means quiet, ninga, how do I say it? Ningana. Ningana. Okay, that's yum. Yes, so please forgive it. My name is Ian R.G. Collis. I am a member of the Gundungara language group in the Blue Mountains of the Darabulap clan group of the Cox's River that share the boundary to the Wiradjuri to the west. So I'm also a member of the Australian Council for the Arts currently. I don't work in grants specifically, but I work more in the national capacity building for the nation. I've just been involved in developing the First Nations Leadership Program for Australia, titled the Custodianship Program. And this program is open to all age groups, all disciplines, and peoples from all over Australia. So yes, that's a bit about me. I'd like to thank Auntie Dolores, who I met yesterday. She's all starred up and she's blew me away, for her acknowledgement, her welcome to country on behalf of her people. It gives me great respect, great honour to be here, and I pay my respect to your people. I also like to extend that gratitude out to Scott and Michael for their welcome here today, and also to Alicia Jones for her organisation, Mitch Curry for the wonderful dance that we come to today. It's very important for Aboriginal people that we come into country with cultural activity. Also, I'd like to extend that congratulations to a milestone for in arts, culture and community within this region for Bronwyn. So thank you, Bronwyn. And I would like to thank everyone on this panel. So I will hand the mic on.
I'd just like to echo everything that Ian just mentioned, and thank everyone for being here, and particularly the Mullinjalli people of this area. My name's Amanda Heyman, and I grew up in Logan City, which is a beautiful multicultural community and has a really strong Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community as well. So I always like to say that I grew up in Logan City, but I also acknowledge my great-grandparents' country. I'm a Kalkadoon and Waka Waka woman. And I own a small business called Blacklash Projects, and we are exhibition curators and event coordinators and do a whole range of different creative projects. And I'll hand it over to Joy.
Yeah, just again, acknowledge country. Thank you for welcoming us here today. We will respect country and tread lightly. So I'm Troy Case, I'm a Kamilaroi man, so my family's from northwest New South Wales, southwest Queensland. And I grew up in Brisbane, and I'm the other better half of Blacklash Projects. Sorry. I'm not. So this is my partner in life and business, Amanda Heyman. And so Blacklash Projects, as Amanda says, is a creative agency. We specialise in art curation, running events and festivals, all in which celebrate telling Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander stories. So I'm grateful to be here on this panel to discuss kind of the best practice models for engaging with Aboriginal communities through the arts and making sure that First Peoples are always first. So.
What I would encourage people to do is because we started a little bit late, we won't go too far late, but if you have burning questions, there's paper on the table, so I really encourage you to write down the questions on the table. Half the time you kind of forget what the questions are when it gets to the end of the conversation. So any burning questions, put them down on the table and attack these people after the session. Gently, with love. So I'm going to throw out the first question. Mitchell, why is protocol so important to you in the work that you do?
It's like a message stick.
It's very important. It's fundamental to anything we do as Aboriginal peoples. When we're doing all this stuff on country, you got to make sure you respect the land and respect each and everyone's, There's a misconception that blackfellas are all the same. We're not. We're all different. We all have our own ways of knowing, doing and being, So, yeah, what's to stop someone to come onto your land to do something that's really culturally unsafe You know, that's why we have these protocols, so people know the right way to go about doing business on our land, you know? As a Mananjali man, I wouldn't feel comfortable someone coming in and doing, you know, God knows what, doing this, and this, you know, doing, you know, using other people's ochres and, you know, stuff like that, really sacred, you know, to our people, and really just throwing that out the window, disregarding it, all of that, that's just wrong. That's wrong in my opinion, and I just don't stand for that, you know. Yeah, that's pretty much like...
I guess the protocol question as well kind of feeds into some really important lessons that I've been taught by some of the elders in Brisbane, particularly Aunt Lilla Watson, who runs Black Card Cultural Awareness training sessions for corporates and government clients, and her niece Mundanara. They teach you a model of, you know, Aboriginal terms of reference, and the way in which that we engage with people and communities is around kind of building a trust before we do business as well. So in terms of the ways that we engage, because we work across, you know, a whole range of different communities, different language groups, different mobs, it's really about, before doing business, engaging in an appropriate manner to actually connect with that community first, understand their needs and their desires for the project that you're going to deliver, and deliver upon those requests, as opposed to coming to the table with some kind of preconceived ideas and notions about what you want to deliver with that community, but letting the community decide on what that outcome is for them. So, I mean, it's not really talking about, you know, protocol law way, but also the way in which you work with communities is very much about trust, because they don't know who I am until you go and spend some time and get to connect with them over a cuppa and a yarn, and maybe it takes 2 or 3 of those cuppas and yarns before you can talk business, you know, because you've got to build trust and respect before you can move forward.
That's very interesting, and what Mitch is saying is critical, and it's really important that I use the echo in that, in the sense that all blackfellas are different, and all engagement and protocol is different. We also come with our customs. We are our life porters as human beings, so we've got in our bag all of our own souvenirs, if you will, of how we do business and what we do. So it's important that when we enter country, perhaps, rather than arriving on country, you enter someone's house. You don't arrive on someone's house. You go into someone's home and you ask them, may I take my shoes off? May I come in? You go into someone's house and they may or may not offer you food because you're a guest in that house. So, but you too have your own quirks. So that trust and that time is really critical, to sit there and to evaluate each other and to start to understand, as Mitch is saying, which is a sort of a national idea of knowing, being and doing, which is a common thread between our peoples. Your knowing comes from your ability to understand where you are, and your being is to understand where your spirit is in relationship to others. And then your doing is a result of that 1 + 1 = 2. So you don't get to the dessert without being offered an entree first. But we can't go into someone's house expecting we're going to get a meal, because you might not.
I know, that's a little bit nerve-wracking. But also it's about, for me as well, is that time and that relationship and building, is that when we work with our own mob, we take the time, and it's about building respect around that time, that process, and it's sometimes such a simple thing, and you treat people the way that you want to be treated. And the going into somebody's home is a perfect example, a very perfect. You can kind of barge in and put your feet up on the couch and watch Netflix. So, are there any negotiables around protocols? And the answer can be no. Yeah, no. Yeah, And why? Because you will get and you can talk to experiences of working with people with them.
I was kind of just gonna on the last point, but it kind of feeds into this kind of perfectly. So, you know, people think that Aboriginal people were, you know, nomadic and Neanderthalic, and, you know, we were an extremely sophisticated society with a horizontal leadership structure that had kinship systems that were super complicated and complex, but created a framework through those protocols for us to survive here without war and without any damage, drought, you know, sustainably for 60,000 years. So I think there's a lot to learn from that protocol process. I think they're in place for a reason. They're in place because they are the foundation for building relationships and respect. And if you follow protocol, you will build that relationship and that respect through that process. And that is not negotiable. And I think that's where so many government organisations and corporates and things get it so wrong, is they don't understand that there is protocol. You know,
There's a one-size.
yeah, there is not a one. Yeah, there's not a cookie cutter, you know, round peg in a square hole kind of method to engage with communities. Each community has a particular protocol and particular people who are responsible for that, and there is a process that needs to be followed each and every time. We get it wrong sometimes too, you know, so it's not, no one's perfect. But I think each time that you go through these processes, there are key learnings, and I think that, you know, the best way as well is for Aboriginal people to deliver programs, because we get it, you know. If the government wants things done, they should hand them over to us to deliver them as well.
And with that, I'll speak, because I'm ready to have that conversation. It's fabulous. I agree. So I'm shaking because you need to understand, when it comes to the word custodianship or culture, you're representing thousands of people, because non-Indigenous people assume that you're the one-fits-all cultural model, and we're all one people as Aboriginal people, but we're different peoples. So I was having an interview with Curie Mail the other day, and I said, you know, the word custodianship, when I mention it, just makes me shake. And they said, why? And I said, well, because it's a big weight on our shoulders. But it's not the weight that you think it is, because I'm not shameful. I'm proud about my custodianship responsibility, so I've got to make sure that I'm working with my elders and I'm doing the right thing. So it's a scary process. Just recently, when I was asked to develop the First Nations Leadership Program, it was suggested to me that I have to create this thing called the First Nations Leadership Program. So that was the terminology that I got. But like I always say, and how my grandmother referenced, how do you get the white fella recipe and add black fella ingredients to make it work for our peoples? So what I did was I collated over 700, I told the Australian Council, rather than putting a program onto our peoples, let's ask our peoples, as NIACA is currently doing through its national consultation in regional, isolated and urban contexts. What do you think we should reach for? And the diversity of that is so broad, and it's going to be so hard to reach for that, but you've got to start somewhere. And the custodianship program was designed by collating over 700 responses of a diverse, I worked my bum off, and I worked with an elder, so she was asking the questions. And I was in the process of deep listening. And through the diversity of language groups and clan groups of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, we then were able to better understand what is First Nations leadership. Leadership isn't an individual process for an individual lifetime with individual objectives. Leadership in our culture is not hierarchical. We sit in a circle and we have a yarn. We are a multi-generational lifetime governance and culture, community, over multi-generational pursuits for multi-generational objectives for the maintenance and the survival and the contributional aspects that we do every day to our culture, which therefore makes us not an individual thing or one thing that fits all that comes off the shelf, fit this term First Nations. No, we are all custodians and we're all individual, and we bring with us our individual sons of ourselves. Go right ahead.
So, what's the question again? So, cultural protocols, whether, yeah. See, for me, working in the industry, like the dance industry, there's also, that I've encountered, there can be a disconnect of cultural integrity, like throughout the whole process of creating these performances, you know? So like, when we get in there and we do this performance, you know, some of these companies and stuff, they're all good and well to go and cater to blackfellas at the start, but as soon as we get towards the end, you know, some of these protocols tend to fade out. Some of them tend to be like not fully upheld throughout the whole process. So I believe that'll come under that one as well. So like just really make sure that it's upheld through the whole process, you know.
Yeah, and because it's also that if you embed protocols from, not just from the beginning at the heart of it, not just at the beginning of the project, but it's First Nations-led involvement at the heart of it, right through to the end. If you don't adhere to those protocols, most of the time we're having to deal with the repercussions of not adhering to those protocols. And we always kind of say that we don't have the luxury of being able to finish work at 5 o'clock, walk out the door and turn off our Aboriginality. It carries with us 24/7. So we are accountable when we walk out the door to our families, our community, other people involved in the project. So,
you know, like the opening, the closing is just as important as the opening, you know? So that's always gonna make that full circle when it comes to doing these projects, doing these dances, doing everything, you know? We've got to make sure our spirits and how we conduct ourselves on country, how we settle back in, and how we put all these spirits back to rest again, you know, for the next ceremony and stuff. So that's to me, you know, that stuff is unnegotiable for me as well. So I just really want to make a point of that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so, Amanda, because you haven't said anything yet, sitting here quiet, like nothing's happening, can you talk a little bit about the process, how you lead from the First Nations process?
Okay. So I think in terms of protocol, that is one of the deciders of how we choose to accept contracts as a business. We kind of have a couple of key questions that we ask of our employer, I don't know, our clients. So we always ask, like, what relationships do you already have with your Indigenous community, and who and how are you involving everyone? And then we also kind of see how much autonomy we can have over the project. A lot of times we get asked to do things, but then are told what's going to happen. So it's kind of like a coordination role rather than a creative producer role, which is kind of where our hearts are. And I think as creative producers, we like to have a say in how much engagement that we kind of embed in the project. So protocol is one of those really essential kind of deciders about how and if we take on community and the relationships that we build. So if we have great relationships with the people that are asking us to do business with them, then that's when we take on those kind of...
How do you keep on track of protocol?
You keep talking to people.
How do you keep
Yeah, I think it's that simple, is that, you know, you check in with people. So it's not as simple as going and having a cup of tea with an auntie and getting some advice and then going away and doing it. You have to kind of check back in throughout the process and keep those communication lines open.
Well, because, you know, protocol, the way I learned it in my cultural community in the Blue Mountains, came from my nanny. So protocol comes from my old ones. So it's a big weight, again, that weight, because you got to go, you know, it's always that balance, and you've always got to check in, am I doing it how I was taught? And then when you're going into other people's country, you know, how are my protocols going to be in harmony with someone else's protocols, and vice versa? You know, it's forever evolving, and I think because of that evolving nature, because I'm not the be-all and end-all in protocols, the ones in my mind of that, and I might be wrong, this is my personal opinion, is those old ones. So, you know, I can't assume that I know the right protocols, but what I can know, what gives me great enthusiasm and curiosity in my culture, is the ability to always share. And I think that through that engagement, when you're sharing through these different frameworks, you're better able to understand yourself and your cultural identity, and them and their cultural identity through that reciprocal exchange and dialogue.
So just generally across everyone that's here, who, if you can put your hands up, who has engaged in some way with their own Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander community in which they live? Great, that's good. Hands down. Next question. So, if you've engaged with the community in which you live, how many of those projects have been First Nations led? They have been the decision makers, they have been the creators, they've been the implementers, and they've delivered, completed the project. Good. Yeah, I mean that's still way more than it was 30 years ago. And I think it's that whole, and from listening to everybody on this panel, is that First Nations projects and protocols is that it's also about enabling and making sure that each of those decisions are made by First Nations people. That they're not just coming in to solve a problem, that they're not coming in just to give information to a project, that we are the deliverers and the protectors and the maintenance holders of culture that is 60-odd thousand years old, and we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors and we have that custodianship responsibility. So it's about ensuring that the First Nations people that are involved in your projects have that support for their custodianship as well. So with each of the communities, and I know we're kind of clicking over time, with each of the communities that you work with, engage with, are from, what does it mean to be involved with those projects or community? Like this next few days for you, Mitchell, what does it mean to your community? Like, we walk away, we drive away, but what does it mean for the community post-Sunday?
So, as a proud Mananjali man that I am, I didn't actually grow up here on country. I grew up in Anala, so that's Yagara country. So coming in to do this project, I can't explain how much it means to me, how much it feels, and coming back and learning about my family, learning about my culture, learning about all these, stories and dances and stuff, it's really shifted a lot for me. And just to be able to give back all the stuff that I've learned, because I studied at the Aboriginal Centre for Performing Arts, so I came in, I've had all of that training that I've learned, westernised kind of learning and doing of dance, and then coming in and, contributing everything that I've learned and that I've seen into creating this deadly dance that we're going to be doing come Friday and Saturday night, 6:30, 7:30. Everyone should come. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I just kept rambling. What was the question again? Yeah, it means, I can't tell you how much it means. I honestly can't. Like, it's this spiritual kind of thing you feel within. It radiates. I describe it as a fire, So it's just this powerful connection that I've that I've learnt and that I've seen grow, and you know, and seeing all my beautiful aunties and my uncles there, and it just, you know, and aunties over here too, sorry I can't see you. But yeah, yeah, shut up. But yeah, yeah, it's amazing. It's honestly amazing, you know. And I'm getting to know through ACPA now. There's a few other Mananjali ones that I've been, you know, telling about and doing. I'm actually bringing in this dance. So five ACPA students. One of them is actually a Mananjali man himself. So him coming back to country, you know, me bringing him back to country to learn these dances, to learn these stories and stuff. It's more than I can ever imagine. I'm living the dream. Like this is what I was supposed to do. I believe the old people brought me here to do this for our people, you know, and by our people. The whole thing is just, it's us, you know. I helped create this dance, not for me, not for anyone, but for our community, you know. So we've got this dance, you know, that we can all share come next performance and stuff. This Arts Ablaze is only just the start for our community. You know, this is the foot in the door for future projects. You know, we've made these connections now. We know we've got our leaders now. So we can get these people up and we're like, all right, so we're gonna do a dance now. How are we gonna do it? All right, someone's got the story, the song man there. We'll get up and we'll go and do it. Now we've got all these stuff. It's only, the sky's the limit for our people, you know? And it's just been amazing just to be part of that, to help my community do this, you know? So, yeah, getting a bit emotional. Yeah. And I just want to thank my old people here today, my elders, for really welcoming me back into community, because it's a scary thing, because I grew up in Anala, so I only know everyone from Anala, you know, every Tom, Dick and Harry from Anala, so, you know, making these connections and stuff, it's powerful. It's more than I can ever imagine. And I'm forever thankful, you know, forever thankful for you, aunties. I love you all. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So, I'm just really proud of my people. I've been telling everyone. That's the one, that's the one. All roads lead here. Yes, Mananjali, that's the one. Yeah. People of the black soil, you know, so this is where we are. Yeah. I think that's, yeah, love yous all.
Answer the question.
What's the question? I think in terms of, you know, confidence and pride building, I think if you're working with Indigenous community and you give them a sense of leadership and autonomy and actually give that sense of trust to someone, that's like really empowering. So I think that's my main concern, and like I think time as well. Like time is really precious, and I know that there are deadlines when you take on different projects. But I think it's key to be flexible in things, and you know, it might not seem like there's a lot of things happening, but just trust that we're having those different conversations and things are moving at the pace that they need to be moving. And yeah, I think that's it.
Look, someone go.
Oh, look, I could probably just really echo what Amanda said. The best outcomes are the ones that are self-determined and the ones that are made with 100% autonomy. We recently have worked with Razin in the Southeast Queensland North region, and it was a refreshing experience to be handed a project to say, you know, we've got some funding for 3 years to help the development of First Nations arts and cultural sector through professional development and projects and programs, but we don't know what that is. Can you, as an Aboriginal business who has connections and strong ties with those communities, please unpack what those communities in those regions want? And we had complete autonomy over that process. We had a gathering, so we all came together over on Stratty, Quannamuka country, Minjerribah, and connected as a group before we did business. So, you know, the people who fund those projects are like, so can you please show me the itinerary of day one? And it's like, we're going to get welcome to country and we're going to get to know each other and we're going to have dinner and that's it. And they're like, oh, but what about, you know, what are the next steps in the process? Well, we'll figure that out once we all get connected, you know. And you saw over that first night, I get goosebumps about it, because you saw over that first night when people get to know each other and get to trust each other, that's when the real business gets talked about. And the outcomes out of that project are so strong. There's now a network of artists who have created a cultural statement as a group of artists within a region who want a particular set of outcomes that are across professional development, across practices, dance, visual arts. And the way in which that process was facilitated was complete autonomy, and I don't think there would have been a better outcome unless it was handed over to us to kind of help facilitate and drive that. So I guess, and that just brings pride, you know, it just shows that we can deliver outcomes. And I think that trust factor, which has been lacking, if an organisation doesn't trust us, we don't want to work with them anyway, so, yeah.
What's the question? Bring me back to it, darling. My mind starts. My nanny was a woman named the late Auntie Dawn Collins, and she was bulldozed out of community in 1957. She was told her whole life she'd never make anything of herself. She carried a living torch, she lit the cauldron. She was the last Aboriginal person, if I'm not mistaken, to carry the torch before 2 days before Cathy Freeman did. She was involved in getting the Blue Mountains World Heritage with my beautiful community, and she stood there, and she was known by her place, her country, with her community, because they stood together and worked together. And sometimes it's just that foot in the door sometimes that Brother's talking about. When, you know, my nanny said this about reconciliation, and I love it. It's in a book called Light in the Way, 1996, Dr. Diane Johnson. And page number 27. I love my nanny, and she reckoned, you know, Roy and I, we've been married for 58 years. And some days we have a fight, but you know, that's life. And you got to have those conversations, and it's give and take. And until you give and take, or you just, you know, you don't know what to do, and that's what keeps that relationship going. So I guess what makes me proud is trying to work between these two worlds as an Aboriginal, Irish and Welshman. And but the great thing is that I know if you mob there, help us, you know, position our culture, give us opportunities, like brother and sister were saying, and like he has experienced with his leaders here in this room today. It can provide such a renewal process that you cannot understand, but we can share it with you. And with that sharing comes great responsibility, but it also becomes an extraordinary thing. And every time you do that sharing, it's like a tumbleweed. It just grows and grows and grows, and that's special. So what makes me proud is being here for my people, and I have deep respects for all of you aunties and people of the Malamanjali. And I hope that my ancestors stood here before me and said the same thing. And I'm proud to be here today and to continue that dreaming, making our dreaming mobile with our culture, our community, and our artistic expressions.
I want to also echo that we look at those who are on the panel, and brothers and sisters and uncles and aunties that are out here as well. And I know, for me personally, my mother wasn't declared a citizen in this country until 1967. And so I do what I do because my mother never had a voice. And if we don't have a control over our voice, then it's not a true voice. We have had generations and generations of people speaking for us, creating for us. It's now time for us to actually take control of that voice. And we are, with the people that are sitting here, our aunties and uncles that have given us this space to be able to be here and fought blood, sweat and tears for that. And I know that where you are all from your communities, there are people in your communities that need to have control over the voices, the way that they want to tell it, when they want to tell it, and however they want to tell it. And I encourage you, if you haven't connected to those members of your community, to do so. And if you don't have an inkling or a way in, or you don't know the first place to start, just ask. That's all it is an ask, because we ask all the time. And I would love to thank each and every one of the panellists, our aunties and our uncles down here, members of the Malanjali community, and beyond, our brothers and sisters from up north in the Torres Strait, Yarrabah, Woorabinda, anyone from Mackay? So thank you. So, hey, long reach, short reach? No, that's a joke, bad joke. So thank you so much for staying with us. I think that's it. Thank the panel, thank our mods.